Hey guys, welcome to the Managers Mindset Podcast. In this podcast, we'll be interviewing successful managers, successful coaches, authors, mentors, management professionals to enable them to share their knowledge to this entire world. Hi, my name is Gopinath Vijay Kumar, alias GV, and I'm an author of an upcoming book called as Real Corporate Hero. Today, we have a very special guest who is a very famous professional in HR space, and he is an IIT and IM Calcutta graduate and has 30 years of experience, which is almost 3 decades. And he is a founder of a Middle Earth HR, which is the Asia's #1 HR certification in HR and leadership. And he has consulted over 500 companies across 10 countries, which is remarkable. He is none other than Mr. Nitin Shankar. Let me welcome our guest. Hi Nitin, how do you really feel?
Hi Gopi. It's a pleasure to see you again. It's been a long journey, but I think people like you and colleagues and friends have really contributed a lot to this.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just point out. Nitin, just you can tell about yourself a bit so that audience can understand from you.
Yeah. So to tell a quick background, I got into IIT Roorkee and I was studying computer science. But I can say that my interest lay in people. I found people very fascinating, looking at how they react to situations and how they deal with issues, etc. And being a quizzer, incidentally, I was featured as in the finals of BPC Mastermind as a quiz specialist.
Oh, wow.
So I was always a voracious reader, and I was always fascinated by how people behave.
Okay.
So I went to IIM Cal immediately after my graduation from IIT Roorkee.
Okay.
I decided to leave computer science a little behind and focus more on people areas. So
Right.
I got into HR, and I was very, very lucky to get into NIT, which was a L&D company, and those days one of the most professional. 91, you can
Yeah, we can imagine about
there were
it.
not many L&D companies. NIT was pretty much the best.
Mm.
So I spent 6-7 years in the L&D space trying to look at how people learn, how people work. And then I took that passion and started Middle Earth Consultants. I was one of the founders. This has really helped me become, now it's been about 20 years since I started Middle Earth, more than 20 years. And we have worked in, I would say, I have personally done the companies in over 10 countries where we have worked intensively with them, helping develop their manpower, etc., and looking at the HR space. So it's been pretty fascinating. I can only say that, I think the most difficult thing and most important thing in life is your mind. And I think L&D being the function which works directly on trying to input the mind, I think I've been very, very privileged to work there for 30 years.
Very, very true. Very true. Nitin, having said this, you've been into this coaching for a lot of time. 30 years and 3 decades is not a small number, right? Now, when you actually look at the current context, the things are really changing very faster, and the technology is changing. The current skill sets, whatever we are trying to acquire, is becoming obsolete is going to become obsolete in next probably 5 years or 10 years. But what is one skill which is not going to be obsolete, or it's going to be stay for so long, is the coaching, right? And one of the biggest skill set everybody, the first line managers or second line managers wanted to acquire, or even they need to master because it has become a demand, is the coaching skill. So from that aspect, I know for a fact that I'm also alumni of Middle Earth Consultancy and coached by you, right, as a executive, certified executive and life coach, right? So most of them are not really aware of what is life coaching. They're really confused about coaching and giving feedback, right? So they think that I've given a feedback, and that becomes, they say that I've coached him, right? So I want you to, give us a clarity on what is coaching. Okay.
See, I think there are a few things which are critical to understand in coaching. But let me start, from the genesis of the word, because when we understand how this word evolved, it will give you some sense. See, there used to be a Hungarian village called Koch,
Okay.
Koch, Koch. And carriages used to be made there, the very fancy looking carriages.
Okay.
So people called those carriages coach carriages, or slowly that word became coach. So coach is just a carriage.
Okay.
Technically, the word means a carriage, and that's how the word evolved. And it's very interesting because when you say carriage, how do you take person from point A to point B? A carriage takes a person from location A to location B. So if you think of it logically, a coach is someone who takes people from point A
to point
B, right? And that is the absolute essence of coaching. Later on, that word started coming in Oxford for tutors. So people started joking that the tutor is like a coach. And in 1830, the word evolved slowly to what it means, that a coach, and then athletic coaches actually made it very popular. So that's the evolution of the word. But the essence of the meaning remains the same. Can you take a person from point A to point B? Right? That is what a coach does. And I think the significance of a coach is far, far more than what you call manager, etc., etc. Like even the people who directly report to me in the office, typically in some organizations, we use the word, oh, we are like a family, etc. I tell them always, we are not a family. Let's make it very clear. We are not a family. Okay. We are a team, and I'm the coach of the team. So your job is to produce effective work. My job is to help you become better and improve your skills to an extent that at some point of time you might have to leave the team. Maybe improve where there's no more space for you to grow within the team, and it's to help you grow to the next level.
Right.
Correct. So coach in essence is somebody, and if a manager is a coach, let me assure you, it's the most important skill for a manager. There's nothing more important than if a manager can be a coach.
Okay.
I'll tell you personally from my experience, I have people, my team, I have about 4 or 5 people reporting into me. The average they have worked with me, directly worked with me, is about, I think about 5.5 years. That means nobody has left me for 5.5 years. On an average. I mean,
that's a big number.
Least experienced person who has been with me for 3.5 years. And the most person who's worked with me the longest is worked with me for 13 years directly. So why is somebody not leaving me? It's not because I don't think I'm like, I'm not I can't say I'm the friendliest of people. I can't say I am the most, soft-spoken and sweet person to work with. But I genuinely believe in coaching. And my job every day is to try to see if I can make my people better than what they were the previous day. Now, when a coach works, he doesn't work only at the functional level. The misnomer is that, a coach works at a functional level, a mentor works at this level, a counselor. Actually, a coach is all defining. He can be all things. He can be a mentor, he can be a counselor, he can be a coach. Because if I have to improve you, let's say, GB, I'm working with you, right, as a coach. Now, sometimes the problem may be that you lack certain skills. Okay, so I must help you, give you a development plan and help you develop the skills.
Right.
Fair enough. But it's not only skills, right? Sometimes the problem for you is you get too emotional, let's say. Or there are some of my people I work with and I've coached my team. Somebody is too emotional, let's say. So maybe this person is professionally very good, but gets upset very easily. Then I have to work with them on their mindset of why are they getting upset. Let's say somebody else has a behavior challenge. Maybe, they're sometimes late, or, they have some behavior issue. I have to work on that. That's where feedback becomes important. So giving feedback and supporting their changes in behavior, supporting the emotional intelligence of these people, and working with them on their mindset, their goal vision. Everything is part of my job. So you have attended a life coaching session. So you know that you're a certified life coach. Cannot work only on the functional areas. He has to work on the functional areas, but he has to also work on the behavior parts of it, the goal visioning part of it, setting up the motivation to achieve their goals, motivating them towards to go in a particular direction. Everything has to happen by the coach. So the coach is all encompassing. So when somebody says, you are like a father, or you're like, I say, no, please don't overburden me with these titles. I am not. If you don't perform, I'll have to remove you. So fathers and mothers rarely remove children from their lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Correct. So, but as a coach, I am a different kind of person, but almost as important as a father and mother, because for the period of time that I work with you, I can move you upwards. Whereas a father, mother don't have that skills, patience, or knowledge sometimes. It's not that they don't want to, they lack it. And their perspective is different. Right?
True.
So I think, and if you ask some of the people, like the most famous example of coaching is the great example of Anne Sullivan and Helen Keller. I mean, it's a magnificent story. You just, if you listen to that story, you're moved to tears. There's this girl, 8 years old, cannot see, cannot hear. And now you can imagine, just picture yourself closing your eyes and shutting your ears. How does somebody communicate with you? And a child who doesn't understand anything.
Yeah.
Correct? Sorry, she could hear, but she can't see. And she had a speech disorder also. So she could hear. So, but she doesn't know language. I mean, imagine you don't know language. Let's say you're in a foreign country and you can't see.
Right.
People might be speaking to you. You don't know what they're saying. So you don't understand what you're hearing.
Right.
You're not fully deaf or anything, but you can't understand a word of what somebody is saying. Second is you're blind. So this lady comes. She herself was some 18 or 19 at that time. So she had just, maybe about 20, just been trained as a teacher for the blind. And she comes there. And this girl is uncontrollable. Nobody knows what she's doing. She's running around. Nobody can say anything to her because she doesn't understand. If some of you saw the movie Black, you can see something of what her personality was. So now, this person works, and Anne Sullivan spends her whole life, the next 26 years, working with this single person, Helen Keller. Helen Keller goes on not only to start understanding, start learning, and she's the first blind person to go to Harvard's, not Harvard, there's a sister college to Harvard, which is right next to it, called Radcliffe. She was the first person to study there. She's the first person, and I don't know why in the movie Black they made that she was failing the exam. No, actually she passed out summa cum laude, which is she passed out with honors, which is a rare achievement. And obviously she goes on to become an inspirational speaker, writes her own books, and changes the perception of the blind people forever. And behind her stands this one person, Anne Sullivan. I think, it's an amazing story that one person can change the world by being a coach to another person.
Yeah.
That's it. And if you read the way Helen Keller writes about Anne Sullivan, you'll feel like, she says, at some place, it's like I was blind
Mm.
and, there is a light coming towards me. And this light was Anne Sullivan. I mean, that's roughly what she says about her. I mean, come on, guys. I mean, this lady was a coach.
Right.
She did not work only on the skills of writing, reading, etc., which obviously she did. But she worked on making that girl very strong. She was guiding her. She was like a friend. I mean, that's why a coach is not exactly, like a very father-like figure. He is a little closer to you. So sometimes he can be your best friend, but he's also not a very forgiving person. So he is like, pretty tough on you. And this is something which is very important in coaching, and I always teach it. The most important attribute of a coach is he believes in the potential of the person.
Exactly.
He believes that this person can produce great results. Second, he has an absolute positive regard. So this is very important. The word absolute positive regard. What do we mean by absolute positive regard? That means the person is always positive about this person.
Right.
He never puts down the person. He never, he never, even if he's tough on the facts, he's tough on the actions of the person. But he's always soft towards the person. It's like, all of you have seen the movie Dangal, for example, the great Mahavir Phogat with his daughters is a definition of an archetypal coach. Very tough on the surface, but very caring in the heart. And he always believes that the person can achieve something amazing.
Exactly.
So if you ask me what's the essence of coaching, right? What is the essence of coaching? It is these two things. Absolute positive regard and belief in the potential. If you have those two.
Right.
And the coach is forgiving but tough. Loving and caring but tough on the ones. So this is the kind of attitude that a coach has to. Then he or she should have the skills to work on multiple aspects of a person. Like when you did the certification with us, the skills are what is emphasized.
Right.
The skill of how to help the person vision a goal. The skill of looking at what we call a developmental plan for the person. The skill of giving feedback on habits and ensuring that people are, giving the habit change. Thirdly, the ability to look at behavior and emotions and even work on those areas. So a coach is a holistic person and is able to have the skills to work on all these areas.
Right.
Lastly, and most importantly, is what we call the approach to coaching. And the approach to coaching always has to be through a conversational questioning method where the answers come from the coachee rather than the coach.
Yeah, very true. That's where when we, the effectiveness of the coaching session, probably if I have to put a number, only 30% of your time a coach has to speak, and remaining 70% has to be, the coachee is supposed to answer all these questions, right? So, but generally what happens is it's vice versa. Right.
True.
So we managers goes into the room and he suggests everything. He speaks on and on and on for 70% of his time. Probably if we're going to say 45 minutes of time of 1 hour, and 15 minutes he says, "Are you okay in doing this?" And he says, "Yes, we'll do." So it's more of coaching approach they need to understand before even getting into this coaching, right? So that's one thing I'll be always absolutely clear in terms of looking at it. But what is the key challenge, Nitin, is when you're talking about, right, a positive rigor, being tough, as you said, and and then the approach, and believing in the potential, right? These are the three things which is really needed, as you said. In terms of an approach, the skill sets which the coach need to acquire to become a coach, or an evolution of from a manager to a coach, what kind of skill sets apart from questioning, right? The questioning is the fundamental. If a person doesn't have an ability to question or probe question, then it's not going to help them, right? So I would rather say that is at a very beginner level of in the stages of coaching, if he is unable to probe questions. Apart from questioning, right, what are the other skill sets you think that particular manager should possess?
So if you ask me, you're absolutely right. The way to question what we call conduct a coaching conversation,
right,
is a fairly specialized skill. It has to be practiced a little and acquired. Point one, you're absolutely right. And probably that's the heart of coaching. The other two parts is he has to work on his mindset a little bit to acquire that positive regard and come in with that care for the employee. See, most managers don't have it. There are some managers who are not coaches, but they do care for their employees and people, their team members, and their team members are very loyal to them. And they genuinely believe in them because the manager at heart, they know that this guy has a positive regard for me and he wants me to do better. See, a lot of managers, to be honest, I don't know for what reason, they're very scared to give the skill sets, thinking that, the person, if he acquires the skill set, will take over his position. Frankly, I call these people bonsai managers because they want people to be smaller than them always. So they will keep cutting out that person so that that person becomes smaller than him. A true coach is someone who wants people to go much beyond him also if required. I mean, if classic story, Mahavir Fogart. I mean, this movie was very powerful because he was a failed wrestler. He didn't go internationally, but he wanted his daughters to go internationally. They want their people to do better than them. Or, for example, if you look at even the other movie, which I always would admire any coach to see, is Chuck the India.
Right. Yeah.
This guy lost the cup. Right? And he was maligned for that. He wanted his team to do better. See, that genuine feeling is rare. And I can assure you, I can give everybody 100 skills in coaching, but it's a feeling and emotion that you want your people to go to the sky. And sometimes the sky may be not even in your organization, maybe in some other organization, maybe going somewhere else. It's fine. If you are genuinely concerned about the person, it's fine.
That's more than enough.
The feeling is very important, that absolute positive regard. It's like when you scold your child, the child and you both know to some extent that you care for the child, that you have an absolute positive regard for the child. So even that scolding the child, throws away like a duck after some time. "Theek hai, Papa ne kuch bol diya, theek hai yaar." Next day we are back to normal. Because why? Because the child trusts that, and children are very forgiving, right? You'll see cases of very bad abuse also at times, but the child is always forgiving because at the heart of it, they know that the parent is caring for them and has a positive regard for them. That and the belief in the potential are the most important. If these two are there, I think that quality is rare. If you get a manager like that, you're blessed. Whatever be his skill set, whatever be his technique, you'll be blessed because at the heart of it, you will know that this guy cares for you.
Right.
That's point one. Point two, you said coaching conversation. That's absolutely important. And in our program of life coaching, a good coach, regardless of our program, a good coach has to have a good understanding of what levers to move. How to set goals which motivate people, how to converse with them that motivates them, how to understand human behavior, like things like habits, how to change a habit. See, employees have habits. You go to any organization, there will be some employee who will always come late or, for every meeting he's late. Now, unless you understand how to go into that habit, you can't change. Then there is mindset issues in people. Some people get very negative. We are taking this interview during COVID. one of the biggest challenges we are facing is there's so much of negative information coming into a person's mind. As a coach, you'll have to try to change that.
Exactly.
So, for example, I've done a training session with all my employees that, don't read too much of things, negative things, etc. Don't focus too much on that. Focus on positive stories. Right. Be grateful every day. So I asked them to do a gratefulness exercise of every day getting up and being thankful for people. And hopefully we are able to, and then, so these are things, how to change mindsets, how to look at behaviors, how to look at skills. So if you look at it, how to change a person's ASK, attitude, skill and knowledge, and behavior, habits. Right. So cash, knowledge, attitude, skill and habits. So the cash, you have to have an understanding of how to change the cash in the mind of the person. I think that's it. I think your understanding of cash, your ability to hold coaching conversations and be calm when you're talking to people. And third and most importantly, I think, is your attitude itself. I think attitude tops all the other two.
All the others, right? So that's when the whole challenge comes in, Nitin, right? So if you look at any managers, right, they are able to coach on the functional aspect very, their coaching levels would be excellent in terms of when it comes to functional level or even technical level, right? But when it comes to changing the behaviors of their the team members, that's when the whole challenge comes in, right? So they people expect people to change just like that, right? That's not going to happen immediately. So that's where the lot of coaching conversation has to happen, and then with that we need to figure out the motivators, or for replacement of habit triggers or ABC activity supposed to be performed. So in order to do that, and then slowly do for all of this, definitely they need to understand the coaching approach, or else this becomes slightly difficult for them. Now for instance, without people who are acquiring for a certification, right? So most of the managers would have or they would have not acquired a certification. But how to use this technique, right? Probably one good technique for them to help. What would it be?
So I think one of the techniques that I always try to teach my coaches also is, I think, the ability to analyze a situation and not get overwhelmed by it. So when I say, when you look at an employee, we talk about iceberg model person. So at the top of the iceberg, imagine an iceberg. At the top of the iceberg is his knowledge and skills. These are relatively easy to understand, easy to see. Below that are habits.
Right.
Now this is under the waterline. So you might see it partly, and sometimes you may not be able to see it. Right. So for example, if I have a habit of surfing very late in the night and watching internet till 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, that's my habit. But what will be the result? That I'll be dull through the day. I may not be coming to office on time. So you have to be able to understand a person as to where is he really going wrong. The habits area. Then below habits is even more dangerous. The attitude of the person towards, so there is attitude overall towards life, which is pretty, if you look at it, some people are negative people. Some people are very positive. So there is a general attitude. Then there's the motivation to do the job. You might be a very positive person, but I want to go and climb Himalayas and I'm very positive to climb Himalayas. I'm not interested to do the software engineering job. That's a different matter.
Right.
So maybe I'm not motivated by this. So I have to work on the dimensions below the waterline. Working on the functional skills, as you said, is relatively easy. Because you know what skills you want, you can guide people to give them the skills. If you're a good manager and you are a little patient with the person, do it. Below the waterline is where they should go. So I think your ability to diagnose a person and look at a person and understand where is his lack is the first thing, because you can't fix anything without knowing where things are going.
Right.
So if you ask me the most important skill, one skill I would advise is try to look at this in a person on this multidimensional model, not just knowledge and skill, but also his attitude, his motivation to do the job, and his habits, and try to focus on each of them slowly and trying to build them up. For example, I mean, I can give you only an example from a famous movie. Let's say you take the movie Chakti India. How did he change the attitude of person? You remember that very famous scene where he asks everybody, where are you from? Whom are you playing for? This person says, I'm playing for Haryana, blah, blah, blah. Another person says, I'm playing for this. Only one girl answers, I'm playing for India.
Yeah.
So he then takes that and makes people feel bonded. Earlier, they were all in little cliques and each person felt, I'm a Haryana player, I'm a this player. And, actually they didn't feel united as a team. And they would only support their own players. So Haryana player will, support the other Haryana player, etc. But he tried to change the attitude by focusing on a common vision. So skills like that, looking at a vision, making people focus on a goal, understanding that these are critical for, in my view, for any kind of life coach or any coach also, functional coaches. Frankly, I don't like the idea of somebody telling me that you'd be a functional coach, because Harvard did a study and they said that almost 75 to 80% of functional coaches have to focus on behavior change, have to focus. And in fact, if you ask me, the other 20% will be probably ineffective. Because at some level, a person is a composite whole. You can't say, I'll only look at skill and knowledge. What's the point of skill and knowledge if the person is not willing to do it? What's the point if he's not motivated to work? What's the point if he is having poor habits which are pulling him down? You have to look at it holistically. So I think if you ask me, the one skill that any person has to do is to look at a person holistically. And some of you, if you're interested, you can go and search for the competency model, iceberg competency model. It's available on the net. I don't think it's a rocket science, but you must use the model and understand it and try to support people.
Right. That was a very good insight in terms of understanding the behaviors and going deeper in terms of behavior and trying to change those behaviors. Thank you very much. So last but not the least, so if you want to give one piece of suggestion or an advice to the first line managers or second line managers with regards to coaching, what would it be?
So I think I'll just go back to the point I also mentioned right at the start, is try to create people who are bigger than you. Firstly, I'll tell you something. If you create good people below you, you will only rise. If you keep them as bonsais, you will also remain a bonsai. So the first thing is, you have to build people up if you want to grow. I always say, make yourself replaceable, which means that you try to get people to take your place. Because if you can't get people to take your place, you can't go upwards. Correct? There are enough deadwood in an organization. And I'm sure you go to any organization today, there are absolute deadwood in that organization. These are people who have never let their subordinates grow. They have tried to, they're very scared of their own little position, that somebody will replace them. So they kind of keep all their knowledge to themselves. They don't let anybody grow, but they also don't grow. And they become, how do I put it? They slowly start rotting from inside. It's like, there's no change in them. As a manager, I think, look at each subordinate, try to make him grow. And if you actually do that, you will grow substantially. I think, if you go to some very, very senior people who have done extremely well, majority of them, I would say the vast majority, are people who have built up their team members.